A warm welcome to all of you and a heartfelt namaste. I, Anuradha Sharda, would like to thank all of you for watching our videos, for writing in your comments and your suggestions. A warm welcome once again to Charlotte Benson. Charlotte, a warm welcome to you.
Thank you. Thank you, madam. I'm happy to be here with you.
Likewise, it's an honor to have you on board. So,
likewise.
Charlotte, you know, there's a lot that we have discussed about your being a stellar personality in the world of Jyotish in our last few videos. And for those people who've not watched those videos, there are a lot of information out there. Please do watch them. Charlotte, today, what is an interesting topic that we are going to discuss on?
Well, I think it's interesting to consider the effects of Mars, Kuja, Mangala. You know, it's such a beautiful shining presence in the night sky. You know, and I do think it's worthwhile to go outside. You know, there's such a beautiful display in heaven now. You can see Jupiter blazing brightly and Saturn there, and the moon is still full, and then Mars in all its glory. So you know that Mars is in a special situation now since it's retrograde, and of course your listeners know that when Mars, or any planet for that matter, is retrograde, it's closest to the Earth. So so we get full darshan from the planets. I think that's an interesting concept. You know, we go outside and look at the planets. Not only do we see the planets, but the planets see us.
Yes,
so
beautiful.
So I know that's a quaint idea, but there you go. So, so Mars now in Pisces, I think I think that something for us to keep in mind during this time is that our best tools and weapons, that's my very simple concept of Mars, are associated with our spiritual practices, our spiritual development. You know, I think this is a lovely position for Mars, in that it reminds us that that again, since Mars has to do with coherent activity in the outside world, what we want and how we get it in a very simple form. So now our you know, perhaps our standard abilities to go and get what we want and accomplish the needs of our ego are now best accomplished through meditation, contemplation, selfless service, mantras, creative visualization, you know, whatever our spiritual practices are on an individual level. And of course, donating to charity and all the standard things that we always do regularly. I think that this is just a good reminder to maybe perhaps refine our spiritual techniques or our spiritual abilities. So for instance, just in my case, I learned how to perfect my pranayama techniques. Apparently I've been doing it the wrong way all these years. Or anyway, and the idea here is that things, again, a little goes a long way. Mars in Pisces says, you know, just a little teensy bit of a refinement can have a big impact. So I don't know how that you would apply that, well, in almost any case. But again, going back to the concept of energetically rededicating yourself to your spiritual practice, I think is the best use of this energy for the duration. That's my opinion about that.
So even what you mean to say is that when the Mars is active, or rather straight, or is not retrograde, you tend to do a lot of things, activities on the outside. You're the true Martian soldier, fighting and, you know, doing work, expanding your energy. What you're saying is this retrograde Mars asks of the energy to move inward and see what you can do to your own self, instead of doing things on the outside. Do it to your own self to move towards the higher pitch. And so if it's in the Pisces sign, what's so special about this Pisces sign that you say a little bit goes a long way?
Well, it's I mean, because Pisces is subtle, isn't it? It's, you know, I mean, it is to be hoped that people that have planets in Pisces, or that when Mars is in that arena, that the desire nature is not so much for acquisition of exterior or material or uh, worldly concepts or material. It's more that I suppose we could make a metaphor out of fighting an internal battle, or our higher self in contrast
Okay.
to our lower self, or it's just it's a very private, internalized, subtle but profound process, I think.
Okay, so you mean to say that even if during this phase when Mars is retrograding in Pisces, a small step towards self-awareness, because when we are self-aware, we are actually moving in a positive upward direction. That will go a long way in our life to, make us a better human being and probably nearer to the source.
Yes, exactly. I agree with that exactly. And I think that because of the qualities of Mars, that one of the questions here is about true strength. True strength. Where does your strength come from, as opposed to outer power? It's more an interior acknowledgement of your own strength as opposed to power. So developing spiritual strength, spiritual muscle through, like you do through tapas, that sort of
Ah,
thing.
so that means that this is during this phase when we are doing the spiritual, developing the spiritual muscle, we are actually going to be able to, this is going to sustain us on the outside for a long period of time to come.
Yes, and it's just like doing any other sort of intentional activity to strengthen whatever it is. So during this period, we can strengthen our spiritual muscles if we could extend that metaphor through maybe a little more intentional, devoted spiritual practice somehow.
Mhm. That's a very good take on, and each to his own. Everything. Somebody can like a mantra, as you said, a mantra flavor, pranayam flavor. Somebody can write books or somebody, whatever. That's introspection, open to introspection, and each
Mhm.
to his own. That's a beautiful take there, Charlotte.
Yes.
So this was a beautiful one where you talked about a retrograde Mars in Pisces as of now. But what about just a normal, or should I say, a forward-moving Mars in the sign of Pisces, Charlotte?
Well, I think. Oh, thank you. I think essentially it's pretty much the same idea that when Mars resumes direct motion in Pisces, then I think that it may be that the accumulated benefit of having done more refined, I think, spiritual practices, then the result will appear, and people can look for a more subjective conscious or a confidence in what they've done with in the interval, with on a subtle level developing that muscle, and then maybe there's more of an external manifestation of your accumulated spiritual merit, perhaps.
Right. So
Uh,
some person then that the spirit could make you so happy that you could be doing some spiritual work on the outside. I mean, once it gets direct, is it something
yeah,
like that?
yes, yes. Or you see more visibly the result. So,
Ra. Mm.
when you're praying with an intention,
Mhm.
and just hasn't incubated yet. But I like that term incubation when Mars is in Pisces, because something is going on, something is developing, but it's subtle. It's underneath uh, you know the
The
sight of the
vision.
visible. That's right. It's invisible so far, but it will become more visible, obviously, as it moves forward. So
So as
that's
it
what I.
moves forward into its own sign of Aries, but this so much of accumulated spiritual strength. So what does this Mars in Aries on in a natal horoscope? How would you interpret this Mars in the sign of Aries?
Well, Mars likes to be in its own sign of Aries, and it's just moving straight forward as quickly as possible. Damn the torpedoes, full speed ahead. Just it's just the natural intelligence of Mars and Aries goes to just taking immediate action, and that, as long as Mars and Aries has good teammates to follow up, I think that, taking the initial step is, that it just begins. I think it's very, that's a beautiful qualities of Mars in Aries. So we don't have all the details. So it's, maybe it's a little bit risky. Well, fortune favors the audacious.
Yes.
And that is the brilliance of Mars in Aries, is to take the
Just
initial step, to
right.
be the executive, to be a good example to other people of courage. Maybe, hopefully it's not as foolish, but that Mars is best. Mars in Aries is best when it has some way to display, to be brave on a public platform, on a personal platform. Just that the sense of bravery and honor is, I think that's that's a natural expression. That's part of the charm of Mars in Aries.
Right. And as we go further into the sign of Venus's sign of Taurus, this Mars again is changing color and flavor. How would you interpret that there?
Yes. So when Mars is in Taurus, then the initial effort has been made, and then there's more of the enjoyment of that. Maybe it's definitely more considerate. By that I mean considerate of the actions. And Mars in Taurus can consolidate the previous gains of whatever they were, having gone out in a show of strength, and so then it's the enjoyment of the fruits in a more material way, I think. But again, Mars in Taurus is going to be much more deliberate and conservative, but has a different style of then the desire is to acquire possessions or material goods. The desire is more for possessions, not for the principle of something else. So of course it's very practical, very pragmatic, can be consistent and persistent in efforts. So when Mars is in Taurus, it's just the accumulated effect of step-by-step progress.
And as it moves further into the sign of communication, do you like to see a Mars in the sign of communication, or is it a little too rash?
Oh, well, yeah. Well, again, that's his natural style. I think, Anuradha, you know me, I love all the planets everywhere. Seriously. I don't know it. I mean, maybe I shouldn't admit that in public, but really, everything has a function. Everything has its own personal style. So yes, one does need to be concerned when Mars is to think first before you speak. But isn't there that charming quality of so much curiosity and just the desire for more information and for the exchange of ideas and that level of stimulation? Yes, one does have to be careful to not put one's foot in one's mouth. Sure. One could expect that to happen. And yes, it's true that Mars and Mercury are, that can take some careful handling. But I think that the benefit from that is for, the acquisition of more useful information. So again, part of its charm.
Okay, that's a beautiful one, Charlotte. And in the house of fall, that is in Cancer, I've often heard that this Mars is not as bad. Do you agree to that fact?
Well, so the idea here is that there can be a little bit of conflict between emotions and, it does have that emotional protective quality where it's definitely very good for defending the home space and our family members and strengthening. I would say that when Mars turns out to be in Cancer in 2021, that people instinctively add security measures to their home. But the thing about Mars in Cancer is that it can that it can be really so. There's an English word. It's an old English word called clannish. Just okay. If it's this is only for the benefit of my family, whoever the family is, with the
Yeah.
exclusion of other people, and so that I think that's part of the reason that Mars is debilitated in Cancer is that there's such an emotionally, one has to be careful of emotionally reactive um, actions against perceived threat to the family unit.
Right. So these people are, in other languages, people can call them claustrophobic because they're very much into their family and into their clans, as such as you said.
Yeah, their clan, their tribe, their ancestors, their genetic predispositions of whatever sort. It can be, with all due respect, a teensy bit racist, perhaps, somehow. I mean, I'm offering this from the perspective of living in the United States, where this is a big issue. Well, it's always been a big issue, and it's a very big public issue now. But the idea is to remember, as you know, the great saints say that the world is your family. The entire world is your family.
Vasudeva Kutumba, yes. And racism is not the keyword only in the States. It exists everywhere. Even in India, we have the caste system, which is nothing short of racism, Charlotte, actually.
Yes. Well, so that is, I mean, that's something to consider during that time frame.
Right. So when we talk about Leo is a fire element. You have a Mars in a fixed fire element. This is the king's country. Leo is the king's country, and the general comes trampling in here. Is the general happy here?
Yes, sure. Yes. The ego is fed nicely, and but again, it is to be hoped that the motivation with Mars in Leo is for the benefit of all, or it's a more, I don't know, I think it's more high-minded, that yes, there's definitely an element of ego and but it goes beyond self-preservation to preserving the security or the interest of a larger group, maybe. I mean, this is good for administration, and for, at least it does, maybe repairs a little bit of the collateral damage of having had Mars in Cancer. It certainly expands the abilities, and I think that's a nice combination, quite frankly, in a general way.
And about, as we move down to Virgo, the perfectionist is Mars. Do you think Mars is actually good in Virgo? That's my question, because Mars is not a perfectionist. Is he a perfectionist? Do you think?
No. Mars is, Mars goes in to, do whatever he's sent in to do. However, but since every planet in any sign has a function for technology and for actually taking care of the small details that need to be taken care of. Somebody's got to do that, in terms of reading the code books, to be an architect, for instance, to make reading the code books. I suppose that would be a good representative here. But that there's a high function there of really putting attention on the minutia that supports the bigger ideals, that makes so the little wheels turn so that the big wheels turn. And in terms of technology and in taking action to improve health and efficiency and effectiveness and higher functioning, sure. Mars is not a perfectionist, not at all, but can
given
be
the circumstances.
That is right. Can use a really especially refined skill set to good effect.
Right. So, and from here, it also gets a good aspect on its own sign of Aries. So that I think that also keeps it safe and sound when it's able to see its own house from the.
Yeah, good point. Good point. So again, Mars in Libra is they have a particular genius for being able to acquire a team to help them do the job. There's
That's a
that
nice one. That's a nice
yeah,
one.
yeah, they somehow can charm their way into getting collaborators or associates, or they can they're good at assigning you know uh, again delegating. I think the part of the genius with Mars in Libra is to have a crew, have a crew and a team to do the job. And it's a pretty straightforward concept, but
Mm,
that
it sounds so interesting, because supposing somebody has a Leo rising and then Mars in Libra, so you order around all your siblings to do your work. In India, that would sound the perfect way. So,
well, yes, but having Mars in the third house, that would put Mars in your third house, and
mhm.
that's a great position for just being able to connect the dots and have the energy to do things that you need to do. Really, I mean, that's very highly productive. So, but
I
yes,
agree.
but that would be the mechanism that how that would occur. That
Uh,
plenty of energy to do things, also energy through collaboration and teamwork.
Right. So when Mars moves on to Scorpio, its own sign, and the quiet, darkest place in the zodiac, what does it do there?
Well, you have to, you have to keep your wits about you when you're dealing with somebody with Mars and Scorpio. It's very powerful, but so as long as there's a good external outlet for this, yes, it's very powerful. But psychologically, there can be the continual churn, internal churning, and there can be some uncomfortable aspects for this particular position as well. And Mars in Scorpio needs a specific outlet for this energy. They're great. This is great as if a person were an industrial spy or a researcher
That's
or forensic anything. Forensics are Mars and Scorpio's forte.
that's a beautiful one. It's beautiful. So Mars and Scorpio for forensic or espionage, any of these things are, it's like go hand in glove kind of a situation, as you say.
Yeah, very good psychologists, psychiatrists, diggers, researchers, understanding hidden motivation. Um, but Mars and Scorpio works better for when a person is more mature and they can handle their own emotions. Yes, Mars is in its own sign in Scorpio, but still, there can be the overwhelming
Quality.
emotional qualities, right?
Totally agreed. Right, right. So
So that
beautiful. And
yeah.
what, so does it acquire a spiritual, now it's moved through a lot of Gandhanta also, as you said earlier
Yeah,
on when we were talking. So it's moved through the Gandhanta of Scorpio and Sagittarius, moved into Sagittarius. Do you think that Sagittarius and Mars makes a person a spiritual warrior?
yes, yes. Well, but let me refine that concept. Maybe not so much a spiritual warrior, but more like a person, a warrior for principles.
Okay.
Principles, their belief system, their operating paradigm, their understanding, their philosophy. I think that Mars in Sagittarius will really take up arms in order to fight for a principle, whether that's philosophical principle, a political principle, a religious principle, religious as opposed to spiritual. Um,
Okay, the spiritualism would move on to something like Pisces, as we were discussing right at the beginning.
that's what I think. If we're to use the strict terminology there, um, Mars in Mars in Sagittarius could be quite. There could be this that would be more associated with religion or dogma or ethics or morals or philosophy or general principles. I found in my work here in the States that I have quite a lot of clients who are attorneys. For some reason, I have a lot of attorney clients, and so many of them have Mars in Sagittarius, where they really are fighting for a principle, Now, in the devolved state of Mars in Sagittarius, we can say they're just fighting to defend their opinion about something, whether it's truth with a capital T or not.
That's a
So
good one. That's a good one. And I'll hold you on to this devolved one late for later on as
okay.
we move on with the conversation. It's getting exalted in Capricorn,
Yes,
Mars.
yay, Mars and Capricorn. Yes, and I think that's true. There is such a good reason that Mars is exalted in Capricorn because, excuse me, Mars in Capricorn has the ability, as Maharishi Mahesh Yogi says, to see the job, do the job, and stay out of the misery. Mars in Capricorn has that quality of just being able to, even if it's not fun, and even if it's tedious or really boring, there's just the ability to put one foot in front of the other, and the accumulated benefit that comes from the consistent, regulated, structured construction. And people with Mars and Capricorn, or when typically I would say they're the masters or the mistresses of the material world. They understand time, budgets, all the other structures. I mean, you can say I'm very enthusiastic about Mars and Capricorn as
Yeah,
well.
so this is so true what you just said, Charlotte, because I know somebody very close to me who has her Mars in Capricorn, and 6 months of the pandemic, she has a huge house, and she didn't call anybody because she said 6 months I will do it. Just as Mars started with retrograde motion, she decided to call somebody in, and it's now while talking to you, it just struck me that yes, it's because that she's so strong. She just was putting each day as it came, taking each day as it came, and working through it. So that's a beautiful
Yes,
thing. As you said,
yes,
doesn't she doesn't have to like it, but she was just putting one foot forward every day and
yep,
getting better. Yeah.
yes. They're stoic. They keep their eyes on the prize, not distracted,
Mm.
organized, motivated, ambitious. All those wonderful. Those are all the best qualities of Mars, aren't they? Uh,
Yeah.
to do not only to have the energy, but it's just channeled, regulated, organized, and accountable.
That's a beautiful one. And when it moves out towards now, it's moving upwards towards the sky, this Mars in Aquarius. How do you go about doing this?
Well, Mars in Aquarius is sort of a wild card. Um, it still has, excuse me, it still retains the structure of being in a Saturn-ruled sign, but typically, just in a general way, Mars in Aquarius can operate a bit like Mars in Libra, can operate within a group. I would say Mars does its best work in Aquarius when it's in a group of friendly strangers with a common cause, whether that's civic, community, social in any way, even quasi-political, or foundations. It's different than, it's not charity work, but it's more organized toward for the benefit of humanity as a concept.
Right.
That's why the good, but the strength of Mars in Aquarius comes from joining forces with another social cohort, I think.
Right. Right. So that brings us back to square one, that is Mars in Pisces, from where we started. So I'll ask you a question, which I left behind was that what do you mean by devolved Mars, and what do you mean by an evolved Mars?
Ooh, did I say that?
You
Um, you have good ears on you, Radha.
did.
Uh, so, well, how Mars can be either. All right, so the basic qualities of Mars can either be in a primitive state. I put little finger quotes around primitive, where it's the energy is devoted only toward their own individual, personal, subjective, immediate, uh, instinctive impulses. That's primitive, or civilized, or civilized, where the efforts of Mars would go through to the accumulated good of the whole or the group, or something besides just the simple immediate gratification that, let's be honest, Mars likes immediate gratification. That, I mean, that just the nature of, that's the nature. But I think that, we could use another analogy. I'm saying that devolved is primitive or undeveloped. Evolved is civic or cultured, but it's the same base material. So for instance, it's like the contrast between a sword and a plowshare. Of course, these days people go, plowshare, what the heck is a plowshare? They used to use digging the hole, as an agricultural implement.
Mhm.
The sword and the plowshare are made of the same material, iron, and they can be used either for, destruction, like a sword, or construction, like agriculture. So I don't know if that helped or
No, but
hindered.
yeah, it did help when you say that one is just an it's an evolved state where you're just thinking you're being so reckless, or rather, as you say instant gratification. The other is more refined, is you will be gratified, but not instantly like the sword, but like that implement where you have to dig, you have to wait, and then over a period of time, your effort is going to give you result. Yes, it is. It's beautiful.
Right. Well, I mean, I know it's probably
It
well, I
makes
think it's a
sense.
good metaphor. They're both
Yeah.
made of iron and they have different principles.
Yes.
So good for the good for
Mhm.
the collective, or good beyond the personal, good beyond just the personal ego gratification of one's own actions.
Right. So it's a beautiful discussion that we had on Mars with you, Charlotte. And as you said, that during this entire retrograde phase, especially in Pisces, a little self awareness is going to build our spiritual muscles for a long period of time. So we wish all of our audience here, uh, sh- from Charlotte and me, a lot of spiritual muscle development during the entire Mars period. Thank you
Yes,
so much.
exactly. Oh, thank you, dear. Thank you.